As the judicial system tackles how to refill dockets post the pandemic, some jurisdictions are considering an unprecedented option.
Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Kenneth Gottlieb presiding.
This is a mock jury trial. The 17th Circuit of Florida is testing out how a fully remote trial might unfold.
Do I have permission to publish to the jury?
Video conferencing has been a common fix for urgent pretrial or bond hearings, but could it support a full-fledged jury trial with a defendant's freedom on the line? Judge Donald Oda weighs in from Ohio.
I think the Zoom environment takes away, and I know this sounds like a cliche, but the intangibles that you get from seeing somebody in person. You and I are observing our faces, but your body language tells a lot more.
At this stage, Judge Oda says holding an online trial isn't something he'd consider for his courtroom.
I can't imagine trying to conduct a jury trial or some sort of adversarial hearing by Zoom. The problems are just too great.
One top concern is keeping jurors in line.
All right, Juror 218, the court has determined that you are going to be excused from this jury because you have violated the court's order.
A jury member in the Scott Nelson murder trial last year was tossed for talking about the case before deliberations.
Sir, you shall have no interaction with any of the members of the jury. Do you understand? Yes, sir. That's an order. Do you understand? You must follow it, or the court could hold you in contempt. Yes. Okay. Give your notepad and your pen to the deputy. Thank you. Apologize. All right. And the deputy, well, you are excused, sir. Thank you.
Keeping that courtroom decorum may be the biggest hurdle for video conferencing, says Georgia Superior Court Judge Gail Tucson.
You want, as the court and as the lawyers, you want the citizens to be taking this seriously, making sure that they're not checking their phone or they're on the internet or doing the things that go outside of the evidence that's being presented.
A witness on the stand can make or break a case, and not just by the words that they say. Taylor Showmaker took the stand in October as a state witness in the case against her ex-boyfriend, Hammer hitman Jimmy Ray Rogers. Her demeanor spoke volumes.
Jurors look at defendants when they are on trial, when they are not testifying. They take a measure of them in how they conduct themselves, how they interact with their attorneys, how they stand up, how they sit down.
In a Zoom environment, the way parties would present evidence would be streamlined.
Most trials these days, in at least in your larger jurisdictions, the evidence is already being presented using some type of a projection system. The blood-stained clothing is there, pulled out of the bag. But for the most part, everyone is viewing the evidence, looking up at a screen.
Viewing evidence on a screen would put a moratorium on dramatic moments like this.
6 layers of plastic and duct tape. Does this look like panic?
Prosecutor Julie Hutchinson giving jurors an in-your-face look at the crate baby Dylan's parents, Daniel and Jessica Groves, used to hide his body in a well.
And kind of focus on those basic fundamental rights and probably let go of some of the things which are probably more for, dramatic effect as opposed to really focusing on the facts.
Zoom is a good format for conveying information, for gathering information, for logistics and scheduling, but it is not a good way to operate in a adversarial hearing.
And while glitches are inevitable, like the ones we experienced on our own Zoom interview,
if it keeps happening, we might need to reboot.
It perhaps emphasizes the judge's point that every effort should be made to have juries appear in person rather than online.
If we really put our minds to it, we can figure out a way to do this where we bring everybody to the same place at the same time. If this means that you need to move your courthouse to a civic center, back in when the Spanish flu came through, there were jury trials that were held outside, out on the courthouse lawn.
So the technology is there, it's just becoming comfortable with it in a way that it doesn't impede what you're trying to do.
This is a huge problem. It's a huge. Think about what a jury trial is. It's the government telling you, come down to the courthouse and hang out with 11 strangers and then go into a room and yell at each other. That's the exact opposite of what they've been telling people to do for the last 3 months. Julia Janae, let's bring her in. Julia, this is quite a challenge. We've seen Zoom for a lot of things. I don't see Zoom for a jury trial, but I think what the judge was talking about, he may be onto something about getting just bigger venues to create space, because that's really the issue.
Right, Judge Oda basically says that's what he's trying to do in his courtroom. They don't have as many issues in Warren County, Ohio, where he is. He says they haven't had as many cases of COVID-19, but they try to spread everyone out as much as they can and make those jurors sit a couple of chairs away from each other. But he's thinking using different buildings, different complexes that may be needed to spread people out, because he thinks that is the better way to do it rather than going online with this.
Yeah, and one major issue is, you have a constitutional right to face your accuser. So let's take a listen to what the judge had to say about that.
In Ohio, we recently adopted a law that allows certain types of child sex victims to testify remotely. There is a very complicated procedure where they are in a different room than the defendant, but the defendant has to be able to see them. They have to be able to see the defendant, because confrontation goes both ways. A defendant has the right to confront a witness, but a witness has to testify in front of the defendant. It's very easy for you to say what you want to say on social media or on an email or maybe through the phone. But as you get closer and closer and closer to that person, it's more difficult to say things that aren't true.
Yeah, you've got to see the person. All right, Julia, I know you're taking a look at this. We only have about 10 seconds left here. Do we think that courts around the country are going to come up with a solution to handle social distancing and get these trials going?
It looks like they are going to come up with a solution, but may be slow to use it. But they are trying to have it at least in place, because they have to consider speedy trials and what they need to make sure justice is served.
Yep, big backlog. Julie Janae, thank you so much. All right, folks, we've got a lot more to talk about.